jobs news this morning
Hmm.
and a record in gold yet again. What is going on? Any thoughts on what you saw out of these jobs numbers this morning?
It's all manipulated. It's absolutely all manipulated. Don't take anything for face value because none of it's real. We were talking before we went on air as far as last month's job report. Turns out it was off by 30%. I could see 1 or 2%, but 30%? Come on, folks. What we have to do is we have to see what's actually going on. The things that they're rigging up are where they want you, because all the stupid people go, oh, let's buy, it's going up. The bottom line is you sell when it's high. You don't buy when it's high, and you buy when it's low. Okay? Does that make sense? Sell high, buy low. But some people don't even know the difference. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk to you about like that. There are two markets. Okay, there's a bull market and a bear market. Okay, but a lot of people don't understand the difference of what they actually mean. Okay, so a bull market is labeled a bull market because of this. When a bull comes in and attacks, he starts low and he throws you up in the air, right? You still there, Ron?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm with you.
However, when a bear attacks, the bear starts up high and comes down on you with its claws, rips everything open that way, right? So the bottom line is a bull market is when the market's going up, and a bear market is when the market's coming down. Okay. So the bottom line here is that when the markets are going up and they're being pushed up, manipulated up, get out of that market and get into the market they're manipulating low. You want to do what they're doing, right? You want to maximize the debt. Isn't that what the BIS is doing? Isn't that what the Federal Reserve is doing? Isn't that why we're running out of money here on the bank term funding program? Oh, I heard that's being replaced by a new program. Did you hear about this? Commercial Real Estate Assistance Program. The acronym is crap. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Yeah. I think it's hilarious.
But Ted, I want to interject here as we talk about these jobs numbers. Yeah, January numbers. So
we're paying these people to make this crap up.
Right. Well, we got today we got February numbers, which beat expectations. Surprise, surprise.
It's of course. Yes.
Biden
look at all the office space that's all vacant, right?
Yeah.
Look at all the retail space that's vacant, right? Yeah. Look at the crowds in the grocery stores. Look at the crowds in the restaurants. Yeah, the economy is never been that high before. Folks, come on, daggone it. You're smarter than this. Sell high, buy low. All right.
Yeah. All right, hard. But Ted, hold on. I want to make this point. I want to get your opinion on this. So we got February numbers, right? And they beat expectations. They're wonderful. The day after the State of the Union address, everything's rosy in America. Last month, 30 days ago, on early February, we got January's numbers, and they were unbelievably great, right? It was like 350.
And what did the stock market do? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I'm sure it flew. Everything's wonderful. Everything's awesome. But like you said, now this month, quietly, they said, oh, those numbers we gave you last month for January, they weren't right. They reduced the number from 353,000 jobs all the way down to 230,000 jobs. And like you said, a 30% decrease. Now, that's crazy, right? I mean, it's just like, why would we trust
the ballpark to begin with? Was it?
It's like taking marriage advice from a 16-year-old. You know, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But here's my question.
Some people do that. It just doesn't last very long, does it?
Ted, here's my.
Sorry, this is supposed to be a serious show or a fun show?
It's both. All wrapped up into one. Serious, fun, educational, not religious, but everything else above. But here's my question. You and I talked about this like battle between Keynesian economics and Austrian economics, and I've followed all these economic releases, what the Fed says, right? When the Fed has their meetings, everybody follows that. Today's the big jobs number, and of course it was great. I'm getting to the point.
They knew when to cue the band.
Yeah, well, I'm getting to I want your opinion on this.
Come on, Ron, it's so laughable.
Well, that's my question. I've almost gotten to the point, because you and I talked about this, like we focus on the symptoms, right? And I would put like what the Fed does as a symptom, instead of the root. I've almost gotten to the point where I don't even like I don't want to say I don't care, but it's to the point that gold and silver, the fundamentals behind them are so strong at this point that these little symptoms, these little data points they throw out that we know are at minimum very suspect, right? I mean, they admit that every month when they have to quietly revise. I mean, has it gotten to the point that we can almost stop worrying about this, the delusion or the distractions that they're throwing at us about how great things are.
What I would do is I would turn the volume off and look at the
Yeah.
data. Okay. Now, even the raw data is being screwed up as well. But just taking a look, can you put up the S&P or the Dow? Put up the Dow, okay?
Yeah.
Let's see a 20-year history of the Dow. Can you pull that up and let's show everybody, all right?
I'm working on it. Give me 1 second.
All right. So here's what we want to do, because the deal is this, folks. Are you supposed to buy low and sell high, or buy high and sell low?
Okay, Ted, I'm going to pull up that Dow chart for you.
Okay. There we go.
Here we go. There's the Dow 30. Everything's great today in the world. Record highs on the S&P 500. Okay.
All right.
So
okay. Now let's
go ahead
out
and talk. And I'm
yeah. What I would like to do is let's go max. Absolutely. Let's go max.
There's max.
Whoa.
Now
how about that? Okay. Would you say that the market is frothy? That's a term that these pundits like to use. Still this crap to make people be afraid. Look what's going on. Okay. The market is absolutely screaming right now. Why wouldn't you sell? I don't understand that. Can somebody call in, send me a message? Let's look at it this way. Let's suppose this one guy calls in and he's from Canada. Okay. Has $1.2 million in the market. I'm not going to beat on him. I'm just going to okay. This is the way I look at it. Let's suppose we had $1.2 million in cash sitting in an account. Okay. So we took that 1.2 million and we just put it in cash for the day. All right. My question back to you is, now that you have that in cash, would you go back and buy the same securities that you're currently holding? Probably not. Okay. Yeah, there might be some tax effects, and we're going to talk about that. But I don't think that the tail should be wagging the dog. I think the dog should be wagging the tail. So the taxes should always be less than 50%. Although during estate planning, there was one point in time where if you had too much money left over in an IRA, okay, it got whacked with estate taxes, then it got left with an excise tax. So the total amount of money levied on a leftover IRA was 106%. So if you happen to not plan correctly and trigger all the wrong triggers, you actually owed more than what the IRA was in the first place. So getting back to this, your question was, should we be more concerned about what the effects are in the grand scheme of things, what the wholesale value is, or should we be more concerned about what the retail value is of your investments after taxes? And I would say that if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And if you don't own it, I can tell you a couple of people that do, because all the proxies against this money that you're calling money are simply, they're not money in and of itself. It's all underpinned, as we saw the other day with Exter's pyramid. It's all underpinned by silver and gold in that order. Okay. Personally, I think there's less silver to be used for money than there is gold. Wouldn't that be the ultimate hoax? My gut's telling me that I'm going to see silver go 1-to-1 with gold. Okay. And if that happens, I don't think it's going to happen very long. It probably will happen maybe 20 hours or so. But that's why I'm up like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning tracking this stuff, because it helps me to get a feel for what's happening. So what Ron put up here is what's called Exter's pyramid. It was designed by a guy named the name of John Exter back in, I think, 1913. Ron, is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. So what you're seeing here, first comes.
Hold on, that's a cartoon. Here, first, I'm sorry, that came up on accident, but that guy says, first comes the bubble, then comes the bath. Sorry about that.
But what do you think is inside? You think there's actually anything inside the bubble?
Yeah.
No, it's all air, right? As what these are here on top of the Exter's pyramid. Folks, is there some way that you can keep track and send them the thumbnails for this so they can do a little bit of research? And who was John Exter? What's the importance of this? What school of economic thought does John Exter's pyramid pertain to? Keynesian?
Yeah. Hey, wait, Ted. Wait a minute. Before we're showing this Exter's pyramid, who was this John Exter guy? Was he some fringe conspiracy theorist guy that got exiled from the country, or did he maybe work for the Fed at one point?
Well, Ron, you've done some research on him. I prefer to look at the beef on the bone. Okay.
Yeah.
And other people like to look at the sizzle. Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as the beef on the bone, this is the guy's contribution to economics.
Yeah. And he did it. He worked. I'm sorry. I was being facetious there. The man who developed this Exter's pyramid, John Exter, worked for the New York Fed. And this isn't something from the 1700s or the 1800s. He just died, I think, in 2006. So, Ted, back to you. Sorry, I wanted to make that clear with everyone.
So what's happening here is they can see the base money, bank money, Ron, and government bonds and corporate. They can see what is on this screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
These are all what are called proxies for your money. Okay. So money is silver and gold as defined in the Constitution right here. Okay. Let's see. There we go. All right. And again, as we opened it up to Article 1, Section 10, do I need to get a little slower or people?
No, you're doing great.
Okay. So Article 1, Section 10 says right here what money actually is. Okay. Is it base money? Does the Constitution say that the line run by gold, does it say that base money is money? No. Does it say that bank money is money? No. Government bonds? No. See, they've got you to believe all this stuff. This meeting that I had with this guy, what he said was just absolutely so poignant. He said to the friend that was sitting next to me, he said, you have a gold bar, okay? And I want your gold bar. So I'm going to give you this piece of paper for the gold bar. And he shoves a napkin over to my friend and says, will you sell me your gold bar for this napkin? And he says, heck no. He said, suppose I put some ink on it. Would you buy it then? Well, no. Ink on a piece of paper? No. I wouldn't buy it then. Suppose I gave you a piece of paper with ink on it, that the ink was all arranged in the form of a check, so to speak, from the bank. Would you accept it then in exchange for your gold? Well, yeah, I'd probably do it then. Folks, you need to get outside the box. You're at this show right now, and I'd really like to thank Ron for the platform he's given us. You guys are fabulous, really. You're setting records. The smash on the like button says whether or not you like it. That is because the number of you doing this and the fact that there's not many shows that I've had, your interaction, you're becoming, whether you know it or not, what's called a keyboard warrior. And that's what we need. We need more people out there spreading the word. And if you're not going to be one of the ones that are going to be out there and spreading the word, then you should consider supporting the people that are out there spreading the word. And right now, all I'm asking you to do is smash the like button. And what was the other one? Subscribe button?
Yeah, subscribe. Super chats are always appreciated. And I want to throw in too, if you guys want to learn more about Ted, there's links in the description of this video to his website, his YouTube channel, his Twitter account, and even his email address.
So let's get back to Exter's pyramid. I got a lot I want to cover here. What is at the base of the pyramid is solid. Think of it as a candlestick, okay? And you have a candelabra, all right? You got silver on the bottom. You got the gold part of the candelabra. Then everything above that is the candle itself, okay? When that candle melts down, assuming it doesn't go up in air, let's just suppose it just melts, okay? All that is going to melt down into the value of gold and silver. See, money, like energy, is never created nor destroyed. It's always out there. Money is just sort of moving around. Think of currency as a current in a stream, okay? And think of the banks of the stream being the banks that sort of help control where the currency, the money is going, okay? So what I'm trying to say here is that all this is already planned. What you have on top, the gold, the base money, bank money, all that stuff, that's going away, as it always has. Now, don't think I'm some kind of genius or whatever. All I do is I'm a student of history. And I certainly wouldn't be coming out here talking to you about anything that wasn't 100% true. I got better things to do with my time. So the bottom line is all this stuff is going to melt down, and that purchasing power that was once held by derivatives and cryptocurrencies, all that purchasing power is going to melt down into silver and gold. Okay? So the purchasing power is never going to simply disappear. It's inside the balloon. They can keep pumping it up, pumping it up, pumping it up. Okay? But it doesn't come out because every time they create a dollar, it's created with a liability. So that liability is somebody else's asset. They'd be upset if you took their account that had money in it. And all this is backed up by this fractional reserve banking thing that we talked about the other day. When you make a deposit in a bank, they can lend out 90% of that if the reserve liquidity requirement is 10%. But it isn't 10%, it's 1.67%, which means that if 1.68% of the people decide to come back and get the money from the bank, they're insolvent. Again, the amount of money that they have to hold on in deposits before they can invest wherever they want, okay, is 1.67%. Now let's talk about where they've been investing it wherever you want.
Well, I'm curious, Ted, as we look at that Exter's pyramid and all this, what I like to call synthetic, everything above silver and gold is synthetic. It's man-made, not natural. It's all resting on that base of gold and silver. I'm going to throw out a couple terms to you and see how, if any of these you think relate to. Is I loved your analogy of it like a candle melting down, or I like to say if a couple bricks out of that pyramid fall out, that brings a lot of money, or revaluation, I think is a better way to say it, for silver and gold. But we've got things like potential bail-ins in the banking system, the BTFP program ending here in 3 days?
Monday. What is it? The 11th.
Yeah.
The 11th.
Glass-Steagall. Any thoughts on how all that and kind of what's going on out there, big picture? Like we see, it seems like a confluence of potential financial events coming together. Any thoughts on that?
All this is well planned, and as our friend inside the FDIC says, Ted, there's no money, and there isn't any money. And we talked about this on another show. And the question I had back to Tom was, well, how can you be caught charging insurance premiums because you're with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, right? How can you charge premiums to cover and protect the deposits of a bank when you, as the insurance company, the FDIC, doesn't have the resources to do that? How do you base what your premiums are? If you don't have the money, should the premiums be a lot higher? But I guess you get to a point where you can't charge too much. They wouldn't pay it, or it just isn't worth it. The bottom line is, folks, if you got to hold your own money, right in here, it says what money is: silver and gold. So a lot of you are writing in and say, I'm 65. Should I get the money out? I'm 50. You know what I think? At this point in time, I think we're too close to the finish line. And I think you need to do some serious thinking about whether or not the tail should be wagging the dog or the dog should be wagging the tail. What I'm saying by that is, let's suppose that your total tax hit April 15th of the following year is, say, 40% of what it is that you have. 60% is better than nothing. I'm going to tell you something a little bit personal here. Okay. Don't share this around. When my dad died, he left me his IRA, and I did not want to take any of it. So I converted it all in silver, and I have not sold any silver. So when the tax bill came, I futzed and I pushed and I did everything I possibly could, but there was still a lot of vim and vigor inside the IRS. So house was paid off, no debt whatsoever. I said, gosh darn it, there's no way in hell I'm going to sell this silver. Somebody caught me the other day. Somebody asked me, are you going to sell any silver? I said, heck no, that's not going to happen. So we have a mortgage because I had to pay the IRS the taxes on the silver, because there was no gosh darn way that I was going to sell that, because that's finite, and stuff. Other stuff is just, as you guys saw on your station here, unicorn dust, right?
Unicorn fart dust.
Unicorn fart dust. Okay. Yeah, there's a big difference there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I did. And I have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. And at my age, folks, I'm not going to lose a nickel. I'm too smart, too wily, too old, and too conservative. And I would rather hold what it is that I have, preserve what it is that I have, than put it in the market and take a risk. Because as we were talking before, if you had $100,000, $1 million in a bank, in an investment portfolio, and you lost 20%, at $1 million, you're down to 800,000, right? What kind of return do you need on the 800,000 the following year to get you back up to where you were? Now you lost a year, okay? And then you're going to lose another year coming back. So you're going to have lost 2 years, even though you lost 20% in the first year. But what you need in the second year is 25%. You need a 25% return on your money the following year after receiving a 20% loss, okay? But the story doesn't end there, okay? Because if you're in retirement, chances are your retirement planner says, oh, you can take out $60,000 a year, which would be 6% of the 1 million, okay, which is $60,000 a year. So just because the market went down, does that mean that he doesn't need $60,000 that year? Absolutely not. So now what happens, we're down to 800,000. We take $60,000 off of that, brings us down to 740,000. This is why I'd like to have that board, because it would help a whole lot. So Nick says it's about $1,500 or so. I've already put about 10,000 in, and it's all burnt up so far as marketing and starting the website and the YouTube channels and all this kind of stuff. It takes manpower, and I would rather concentrate on building the content and let Nick and his team figure out how to get it out there. But anyway, he said, Ted, you said at 10,000 you gave us just about all burned up. I said, oh my Lord, how'd that happen? He went over. He said, when you call me at 11 or 12 and midnight or whatever, he said, I'm not answering the phone, but I do jump on it as soon as I get up. And all that stuff is incorporated. And I'm charging you extra, he said, because we've been friends for like 20 years. And he said, but I do need to charge for that kind of stuff because it's a business to run. So anyway, when I was explaining, you got $800,000 is left over after 20% loss, right? From that, I take out the $60,000 that I used to live on, right? That leaves $740,000. So now out of the $740,000, we're missing something, Ron. What do you think we're missing? How about inflation?
Inflation. Yeah.
Okay, so let's suppose that inflation is running at a cool 7%. Who thinks 7? Is anybody out there believe that inflation is running at 7%? Because otherwise you're smelling that unicorn fart dust. Get your nose out of there. Come on. So anyway, we take off $70,000 off the remainder of the 740, which is down, bring us down to, you tell me. So you take a 680, okay, 640, excuse me, okay, or 740 minus the $70,000 brings us down to what, 670, right?
Yeah. Well, I think right. Yeah, you would be down to about, let's say, roughly $700,000, which you would then you would need to make 40% at that point just to get back to even.
But does that put you in the back? Does that really put you back even? Because we had another year to come back, and another year inflation ate another 7.1%,
and another year of expenses to pay out.
See, what we're talking about, Ron, is something called a Monte Carlo simulation. Look, everything I'm telling you is not crap. None of it is. Okay, it's a card that I had. It's called the Monte Carlo simulation, and based upon your allocation between stocks and bonds and your withdrawal rate and the number of years by which you anticipate taking withdrawals over your life expectancy, based upon the time you set it all up, tells you the percentage of the likelihood of you not outliving your money. Okay. So when I was doing this estate planning, I'd ask, well, we can put it in a nice allocated stocks and bonds, but here's the history of it. If we're going to take out just a 6% withdrawal, okay, the chances of you running out of money are like 20%.
Yeah.
So then maybe 80% of the time you'll survive and you won't run out of money. 20% of the time you will. Now, the more aggressive you make your portfolio in terms of stocks versus bonds, the more risk it is that you have. And that's what's called there are different methods by which all this is calculated. But anyway, you have to match that with the timeline horizon as well as the age. So in order to do this, you have to fill out a questionnaire and figure out what is a client's risk tolerance. All right. And this is all part of a financial plan. You got to do it right, because if you don't do it right, you're in violation of the law. So what I found out is that there aren't any laws. It's like the wild, wild west here in terms of the precious metals market. We need a well-regulated market.
I want to ask you a question. So let's say somebody does want to, gold's at an all-time high, right? I mean, today we're hitting, last I checked, all-time highs in gold.
Now's the time to buy gold, right?
Yeah, right. They're seeing news reports on TV. They're seeing advertisements on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and I want to bring something up for you to look at, because everybody knows, like right now, record gold. So gold's going to start, likely getting even more and more.
Break in here just a second. Yeah. Because if gold is already at an all-time high, how is that relevant to silver? Is silver at an all-time high right now?
No. Silver has some.
Hold it. Then aren't we supposed to sell high and buy low? So why would we buy gold when it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1 and the paper ratio is 90-to-1? It's mispriced. Okay. Let's not mess around with God and Mother Nature. All right. Silver and gold come out of the ground relative to one another. It was originally like 12-to-1, but they bumped it up to 16-to-1 because it took more effort to get it out of the mine shafts, because it wasn't quite worth as much. That's what they said. Okay. So the mining ratio really has been 12-to-1. Now, the thing is that when you're mining silver is mined closer to the crust, on the outside edges of the earth. Okay. As opposed to gold, which is mined, throughout the earth. So would you say that majority of, or if you were going to start a mining company, you would probably find the place that has the most silver in it, right? That was the easiest to extract. Now you think you're the first one that has a claim on that idea? No. So do you think the easy lodes, LODES is what's called when you were talking about silver here, okay, and gold, okay, LODES, all right, loads, all right. Do you think all the easy loads have already been taken? Sure, it's like walking into an apple orchard for the first day and say, "Have at it, folks! Pay by the pound on the way out the door." What apples are going to get picked first? The easiest ones, right?
Yeah.
So now the apple orchard's been open for like 3 weeks or whatever, and the weekends are crowded. But there's very few apples that you can pick that are at eye level, and the ones that are there already have worms and stuff in them. The really good apples are up high. So what do you have to do to get the apples that are up high? Well, you're going to have to get on the ladder. You're going to have to climb up the ladder and pick them off, right? And then sometimes it might even be higher than that, meaning that they're going to have to use a pole and pull them down. So my question here is, what is the energy returned on invested, okay, in each of these situations? What kind of return do you get on the energy invested when you're first walking into the apple orchard? What kind of return on investment are you getting when you first get the silver out of the ground, first start mining it? It's very easy. Like, remember Jed Clampett and the Beverly Hillbillies? Up came the round, come a bubbling crude, right? Yeah. Shoots the gun and they were multimillionaires, right? Overnight. How much energy did it take to release that oil? Very little. So what I'm saying is, over time, okay, the resources become harder to get and more energy is needed to be expended. Okay. But currently, if you could buy silver, which is not at its all-time high, and gold, which is at its all-time high, and the market which is at its all-time high, I'm not going to answer this question. You guys are going to have to tell me, what would you do? Stock market's all-time high, gold's all-time high, silver is not all-time high. What would you do?
Right. Yeah. No, you said that earlier. And it's a great point. I mean,
keep it simple, folks.
Everybody says, or almost everybody, and I'm not giving financial advice, but almost everybody says that silver is one of the most undervalued assets in the world. I think when you account for inflation, the 1980 high of $50 an ounce is something over $180 in today's dollars, because the value of the dollar's been depreciated so much. So yeah, it makes perfect sense that
well, let's talk about the inflation thing that you brought up. Okay. Mm-hmm. What is inflation? There's all kinds of fancy definitions and all that. Let's just keep it simple. All right. If you're in the Austrian monetary economic world, as I am, which I hope you become and you embrace, and you start looking into the differences between Keynesian economics, because this is the upstream problem, folks. Put some of your own time into this. Research what is Keynesian economics and what is Austrian economics. Okay. You got to know that kind of stuff, because that'll help you identify what the problems are. So in terms of the mining ratios, they're out of whack. Look at what God's ratios are. 12 to 1, now 7 to 1. Look at what's happening with the stock market. They're manipulating it up. How are they doing that? Well, they're manipulating it up by pumping more and more cash into the market. Okay. And it's keeping the market frothy. And what's going to happen is what's been happening. Take a look at the Federal Reserve reverse repo operations. You're seeing they're gradually withdrawing that liquidity out of the market. And that liquidity we talked about on your computer up here was with regards to the U.S. national debt clock. So we go to the U.S. national debt clock again. We see that the U.S. M2 money supply is $20 trillion. We look to the right of that and we see that there's $621 trillion. That is a claim against the $20 trillion. What would happen?
Hold on, Ted. I'll pull up the debt clock.
What would happen if you wrote a check out of your account for $621 million, but you only had $20 million in the account? What would happen, Ron? First of all, it's above what is the threshold for it? Are you with me?
It would bounce. Yeah, I'm with you. I just pulled up the debt clock. Do you see it?
But more importantly than the check bouncing, what does that say about your economic condition? Are you healthy or bankrupt?
I'm bankrupt. I have more obligations than I have money to meet them.
Right. And why don't we take a look at that down at the bottom line of the U.S. debt clock? We haven't covered this one before. Okay, I know we're bouncing around. The very bottom, the green, okay. 188 hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions. Okay, U.S. total national assets, $188 trillion. You with me?
Yep, I see it.
Oh, but let's take a look over to the right. The second column from the right, bottom line, 213 trillion.
Wow.
So if you're worth 188 trillion and you have 213 trillion in debts or unfunded obligations, are you sinking or swimming?
Yeah, you're sinking. Definitely.
Folks, there's not any time left. All right. I have had a talk with Mike at Pimbex, and he is saying that he will come to their aid and he will get the metal out the door for you. I don't think you have a whole lot of time. If you want to get any metal, you better get on the hook right now and get that money wired and transferred now. Okay. Because this is a very interesting weekend, because on March 11th, all right, all new loans stop.
You mean the bank term funding program ending?
What other programs might end in conjunction with that? Why just is simply the bank term lending program? Why wouldn't, if you're going to pull the plug and you're going to put it in the new financial system, which are right there right now, the patient has got to be completely, you're going to put, let's suppose that we're going to do a heart transplant. Okay. We got the patient, believe this is what's happening. The patient is on the gurney in the operating room. The patient is asleep. They're putting all kinds of drugs in them to keep them asleep. All right. And now what's happened, a major incision's been down in the heart, and they cracked the chest open, and guess what they found? Rothschild. No, sorry about that. But they did. Rothschild is gone now, okay? So when that heart comes out of the hydra, okay, think of all little tentacles. If you're going to remove that tentacle, it's going to create a vacuum as you pull something out of it, right? We got to have something to put back in there. So although the patient doesn't have to be, say expired for a temporary period of time, very long, the patient does have to be out. So we get the new heart in. And then believe me, all the teams of surgeons, everybody's ready to get everything hooked back up again. But the thought is it's probably going to take might take up to 10 days. I doubt it's going to take that long. But during that 10-day period of time, there will be 3 8-hour programs that have been put together very nicely that are going to run 24/7 for the next 10 days. That's all I'm going to talk about that. But the bottom line here is that if you want to get your money in your own hands, that window is closing. And I'm telling you, if you don't act quickly, the window is going to close on your fingers.
Well, I think at minimum, if we just look at the math, and you've talked about this epic battle going on between Keynesian and Austrian.
Do you see the epic battle, or is it just my imagination? Do you see?
No, I agree with that. I don't know that we know specific timing. I mean, we get hints. We get hints. Monday we know the bank term. We do know for sure that the bank term funding program ends Monday. We don't know when. There's all types.
Why don't we wait till after that time to get our money out of the $20 trillion? We'll wait till after those loans.
Well, I think everybody's different, and they need to listen to what you say, what I say. There's a lot of different opinions.
But you know what, Ron? Everybody eats every day. Everybody has bills every day. Your house is probably warm, right? You got lights on there. Everybody needs money each and every day.
Right.
So what is money? Do you have any? Folks, at least go out and get some dimes. Get some pre-65 dimes or something. Get it I don't care where you go to get it, but take the redemption certificates that you have and redeem them for what the Constitution says is real money. Now, your choices are gold and silver. The gold is at an all-time high right now, 2185 or whatever.
80, yeah.
And silver is not in its all-time high. So between those two, what would you pick?
Yeah. And one of them's being consumed at an ever-increasing rate in areas of industry that are rapidly expanding, technology, and obviously with the solar industry, with green energy and electric cars, for instance. I mean, I'll tell you this, as we talk about what potential things could happen, because I always, I say, look, when I look at 2024, when I look at there's an article out this morning, a top real estate guy said almost 500 banks. It's an article that's on Fortune. It's on big, almost 500 banks could either be consolidated or have, financial problems, basically. When I look at the bank, the BTFD and how that relates to bank balance sheets, when we look at the election coming up, when you look at all these things, like this year could be really crazy.
A lot of turmoil is what I'm hearing you talk about.
You
have a lot of turmoil, Ron.
Yeah, but it could.
But putting your assets in the market where there's no strength.
Right.
It's already overvalued. Right. Have you ever talked? Your people ever been talked to about what's called a PE ratio, price to earnings ratio?
Yeah. I think most of our, but I want to finish that thought that I had, because I want your opinion on this. When I look at, it could happen Monday. It could happen Monday, whatever it is, right? The event that's really bad for the financial system. It could possibly not happen this year, right? That's within the realm. It could be a nothing.
Are we in agreement that it is going to happen?
I think that in my life, I've never seen a confluence of factors that could lead to some form of market and financial turmoil. But I also recognize that it could be a nothing burger, right? I mean, a lot of times the things that seem like, and Rick Rule says, don't confuse that which is inevitable with that which is imminent, right? Because thinking it's going to. But here's what I want to say about silver, and I want to get your opinion on this, Ted. Like when I look at silver, when I buy physical silver, I know that at some point it is going to happen, right? Whether it's Monday or it's a Monday 6.5 years from now or 6 weeks from now, I feel like when I buy silver, it's a generational investment that I feel like I hope my grandkids or great grandkids at some point get this silver, right? Because I know
manage it and hold on to it, Ron. I mean, it's not as though it's going to be taken away from as if they kept it in digits on a computer screen. If you're holding that silver yourself, no one can take it from you unless you open your mouth and tell somebody where it is.
Yeah.
So you don't have your own vault. You got to keep your own stuff under your own pillow, at least until the war is over. We're in a war right now. Never hold the script of a warring government. Wait until the war is over, then change the script back in, and then gradually take some of the money you were smart enough to keep out of the hands of those that were trying to disgorge it from you, and gradually then move it back into the currency of the realm, which is, well, let's suppose you move to Canada. Then I guess you want to move it back into maple leaves. Let's suppose you move to Australia. I'd like to visit down under. There's a couple of neat people that have been getting a hold of me from down under. I've had some pretty interesting conversations. Those guys down there. Australia was started as a penal colony originally
for the British. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, right. and you bring up a great point about, and you mentioned this in a previous live stream, something I'd never really thought of. Like, if somebody thinks that America is at war right now, and at minimum we're in war by proxy, you are taking a risk holding, anytime you're holding any paper currency, right? And I think a great way to look at that is if Ted, if you and I had been alive during the Civil War in the United States, and we lived in the South, and we kept all of our money in Confederate dollars. Well, from what I understand is after the Civil War, they used Confederate dollars as wallpaper in houses because they were worthless.
If I can find it, I have one of those, and I'll show it to you.
Yeah,
you guys were worthless. And see if you can find that Continental dollar that I had to show you.
So we're talking about people moving to silver gold. I want to get your opinion on something here. I'm going to pull up on the screen.
Okay.
Right, because I think there's some. Here we go. I Googled the term gold scams and the elderly, just out of curiosity. And this is what I show here. Scammer tries to con an elderly Perry company out of 180,000. Growing gold scam, robbing the millions from seniors. New Jersey man gets arrested in a Colorado gold bar scam. Elderly woman scammed of golden currency. Brokerage lured politically right-leaning seniors.
Because there is no rules and regulations that are being enforced in this particular area. They were enforced when I was in this arena. So why don't we give the idea, why don't we explain some of the money that these guys are making off of selling you this crap, okay?
Yeah.
So let's take $707,000 in cashier's checks. Can we just stay on that one for a second?
On the screen?
Yes, on the screen. You see the 84-year-old scammed out of $707,000. Okay.
Yeah.
If we take $707,000 and we multiply that times the commission that they're making of 7%, they're making $49,500 off of convincing you to buy their crap they're going to put in the vault for you that you still don't own. What I would suggest is, let's suppose you're going to take, say, a 40% haircut. So 40% of $700,000 would leave you the reciprocal, which is 60% of that, which would be what, $420,000. Then put that into Eagles and you own it at that point. But you still haven't paid the taxes because it's not April 15th of the next year. We don't know what's going to happen. Is it possible that things blow apart and anything denominated in dollars issued by the Federal Reserve is completely repudiated? Repudiated. Is that possible? Since all the loans that are made and all the money in the United States is not constitutional, are the loans constitutional? And if the loans aren't constitutional, are you constitutionally required to pay it back? Is it possible that loans might be repudiated, meaning that they're not worth anything anyway? And sorry, we charge you because we could. Okay. So what I'm saying is that you need to hold on to your own money, deal with the tax implications at that time, because all right. To the extent that your unreimbursed medical expenses exceed 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, the medical expenses over top that amount are fully tax deductible. Okay. So let's suppose, God forbid, something bad happens. You don't want to pay those taxes any more than you have to. Okay. So why wouldn't you hold on to the assets that you might have to use and get the maximum amount of use out of it? Because those expenses that exceed 7.5%, unreimbursed medical expenses that exceed 7.5%, or your adjusted gross income, are completely tax deductible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting at this point in the game, though, is take the tax hit, get the money in your own pocket, because what we're talking about, the money is finite. What you're talking about, digits on a computer screen, they're completely infinite. Okay.
Yeah.
Since we've been sitting here, the national debt has gone up. The currency and credit derivatives, now that has gone up. That's the additional claims against the dollars. But there isn't enough money to even pay back the debt in the first place of $34 trillion. Does everybody see that? Can you put a number 1 up there if you're watching along live? And if you are watching along, I'd like you to hit the like button and hit the share button too. Is that what they need to do? Share button or something?
Yeah, they can like, share, subscribe, all that great
stuff. Subscribe. Okay.
Right.
We'll get this right. I mean, it's only my 4th time.
I want to talk about what we just had up on the screen, right? This well-documented problem that we have in this country of right? This is a small section of the precious metals market, but there's some bad actors out there that are taking advantage of people, right? There's a lot of great people out there as well, right? You mentioned, like my sponsor,
Andy Scheckman, and Mike and Pendex, and those other guys. Yeah, they're good people.
I think there's probably a lot more good people, but there are some bad actors, and I guess my first thought on that is, like, why is there such a lack of regulation within the silver and gold industry? Do you think, I wrote down a couple notes. Do you think that there's, we know that when they took the dollar off the gold standard in 1971, there was this memo that the reason they wanted to start the futures market was to induce volatility into the market that would, dissuade people from investing in precious metals. Do you think that maybe this lack of, and again, this is just a possibility that I'm throwing out there, that this lack of regulation is because they want a certain level of suspicion, and gold and silver are for pirates and for robbers, and Pat Holland talks about it, even in Hollywood, they always,
it's only meant to adorn beautiful ladies, right? Yeah, I had somebody. I'm no longer friends with that guy after 28 years. He just got a little weird on me. So anyway, that was the end of that guy. You going up there to check it, Margaret Ann?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. So at any rate, though, what it suggests that we do here is let's get back and let's take a look at what kind of revenue these people are making as to where the juice is. Okay. So there's a guy here with a $400,000 mortgage and $1.2 million in the market. 7% of $1.2 million, isn't that like $84,000? Do these guys really deserve $82,000? A 7% commission on 1.2 million? I was catching brokers violating breakpoint violations, and I nailed them every time. Because a breakpoint violation basically says if you're going to invest $200,000 in this particular mutual fund, then you are entitled to pay a much lower commission rate, or a lower rate to get in. Okay. So if you're going to invest, say, $10,000, you're not going to pay you're going to pay more to get in than a higher amount. Okay. So the more you invest with one mutual fund company through economies of scale, the less that it actually costs you as far as the load to get in. All right. So what these guys are doing is they'll pick several different mutual fund companies and break it up against the mutual fund companies, because the breakpoint discounts come within one company. So if you're going to invest $1.2 million, an unscrupulous guy would break it up into 5 or 6 different mutual fund families in order to max out his commission on each mutual fund family, because he didn't allow his client to hit what's called a breakpoint. And that's called a breakpoint violation. And you're in trouble for that. Okay. You can't do that kind of stuff. Can you do it in the precious metals market? Yeah, why not? Man, come on in. It's wild, wild west out here. I want to become the sheriff. I want to stop this. I put a lot on the line here. I retired in 2010, and I saw the nonsense happening, and I decided to come clean with this and explain what in the heck of the world is going on. The QSIT numbers and that kind of stuff. And Ron, you were so gracious to give me a platform. And you folks, I love you all. You're looking for truth, and we are giving it to you. But see, when you're there's an old saying by Mark Twain. It's easier to fool a man to tell a man or teach a man that he's been fooled. So if you've already been fooled, you want to hold on to that reality that you haven't been fooled because it's more comfortable for you mentally. Okay. But that's an emotion. We've got to deal with logic here. Hold your own money. Don't put anybody between you and your money. The reason I believe that they're allowing the wild, wild west to take over and bandits run around. Okay. No law. There's no rule and order out here in the precious metals market at this time. There will be if you elect me as mayor. Okay. Because I came across a U.S. Department of Justice federal program that allows us to form groups and actually sort of act as posses to go after specific groups of people. So what I consider you, if you're listening to this, and maybe you're catching it second or third hand, if you are involved in the precious metals market and you feel as though you've been scammed, I'd like you to reach out to us, because if enough of you are there, we might be able to help you do something. But in the meantime, what I suggest, take and control what it is that you can control. So what I suggest that we do is let's get this done right. Let's get what is yours in your own possession. Don't put it in a vault. Vaults are not safe. The government can come in and take the vault. If the government needs the money, they're going to do it. See, there's something called an extraordinary measures program, okay, that was put out by Janet Yellen. And when we ran out of money, okay, because the ceiling got increased, extraordinary measures were used, and those extraordinary measures included this. Any money that was invested in government bonds was taken by Janet Yellen, and she spent it. That's why when the debt ceiling is typically increased, there's such a major drain on the debt ceiling, on the funds that have been increased, in order to rehydrate the accounts where these extraordinary measures took the money from. Okay? It isn't yours. You probably didn't even know about it, did you? If you're in the government, you're part of a TSP or a FERS program, Federal Employee Retirement System program. Okay? The G fund is offered to you as an option to invest in, and the G fund is government bonds. So Janet Yellen says, well, you want to invest in government bonds? We'll let you invest in government bonds. I mean, I think this is all becoming so comical. You have to look at it this way when you're like me, because let's suppose that you're a highly trained physician and they bring in some guy from Somalia to cut you open and replace your kidney or whatever. It's that serious, because you are talking about the most amount of money you've ever had in your life, which is your retirement money. And you are talking about something serious. I would think you would want somebody well-credentialed. Well, this guy you're moving around with, yeah, you might have his doctorate, but in what? Social services? Art history? From where? Walden University? I mean, geez, something online thing, a community college or something? I don't know. And is that degree that he supposedly has, it even still offered? And what's that degree even in the financial services have anything to do with economics?
Yeah.
You got to do some research. And then the people that you're getting your concierge team from, and your assistant, and people to move the money around, this kind of transfer team, what are their credentials? Have you seen anything on them? Do you have a CV, a curriculum vitae? What has been their experience? You're going to allow them to get their grubby fingers on your funds? See, that's why these laws were created. It's called the law of, there's elder law abuse. And if you're over 65 years of age, you might fall into that. And if you are, then you need to reach out to a group who might be able to put your claim together with a group of others, and that's called a class action, okay? But the amount of money that's being stolen from people out there is so depressing.
Yeah.
So what we're doing here is we're not charging anything. That's not the idea. I don't need to charge anything. Other guys do. They need to sell something like T-shirts or hats or whatever. But the bottom line here is that what I want you to do is understand what real money is, get as much of it as you possibly can. Then when it blows up, remember me, and let's have some fun together. We'll meet on an island in Tahiti or something, okay? That's what I'd like. Let's have a group of some like-minded people, okay? But that $49,000 or $30,000 or even $10,000 or $12,000, that would buy you a lot of extra eagles. I'd rather see you have the extra eagles with the commissions that should have been I actually earned, okay? Because I actually put the plans together. I don't want to do that at this point. I want everyone to get as many American Silver Eagles and junk dimes and junk quarters in your possession as possible, so that when this happens, okay, then we can party up at the top. But let's not have fun at $31 an ounce for silver. That's ridiculous. I mean, look at it right now. What is it, like 24.68? That should be $355 easy and going up from there. So are you going to buy gold at this point when it's coming out of the ground currently at 7-1, and 1 is the gold, okay? Or are you going to buy silver that's coming out of the ground at 7-1? Do the math. So if an ounce of gold is selling for $2,100, okay, and the ratio is 3-1, 2.8 when you're to take off the 60% that's being used by industry off the 7-1 mining ratio. See, if I had the whiteboard, I could do a little easier. But 7% minus 60% would leave you 40%, right? 40% of the 7 is 4 times 2. Okay, 4 times 7 is 28, right? So 2.8% is what the reciprocal would be. So 2.8% should be the real mining ratio. So we take that and round it up to 1/3, and subtract that from or divide it into the $700 into the gold price, and that's where we're going to come up with 80-some to 1 right now, in terms of the paper silver price, the paper to gold price. But in terms of the real physical price, the physical price is not matching what the mining ratios are. So according to the current mining ratios, an ounce of silver should be 1/3 the price of an ounce of gold, after you take off the 60% that's being used for industry. And if you don't want to do that, let's just go back and divide it by the full 7. Then you get it $300 an ounce for gold. Excuse me, for silver. $300 an ounce for silver. That's still a lot cheaper than you're going to pay right now. I mean, you're going to pay $31 an ounce right now. But are you starting to see Exter's pyramid is in fact starting to?
I like, Ted, your I think it was you that did some rough math and figured that based on Exter's pyramid, if all that were to fall apart, we would have $217,000 per ounce silver, right?
Yes. And the way I did that is you take the total amount of above ground silver, because they have something called deep stored silver. Hey, Ron, what do you think deep stored silver would be?
Deep stored silver that's maybe never been mined? That's
yes. Yeah. Folks, Ron hit it right on the head. Did we talk about this ahead of time?
No.
You hit it right on the head. So they have something. Look for this on the balance sheet, because they might try to fool you. How much silver they have that's deep underground. Okay, so that's stuff that hasn't even come up above.
I know. Hecla, for instance, the biggest silver miner here in the United States. I think they're going down like 11,000 feet, if I hear it, up at their Lucky Friday mine in Idaho. Yeah. I mean, they're going down like super deep now to get the silver. And what you said earlier is true. All the easy silver has been exhausted. I talked to, I've had conversations with Keith Neumeyer, with Jorge Ganoza from Fortuna Silver. These guys know, and it's like, hey, silver, it's not easy to find, especially at this price, an economic silver mine. People are actually moving away from it.
Why don't we look at this? Yeah. When you were growing up and I was growing up, you remember collecting baseball cards? You get some that was it A1 or whatever it was bubble gum, and inside the bubble gum package, it was wrapped in wax paper, okay, and then you had a baseball card, right? Mm-hmm. I remember taking the baseball cards and thinking, "Wow, this is trash," and I would paper clip it or take a clothespin and clip it against the rail that held up the front wheel, and it would pedal the bike, and it was real cool. Well, then it didn't last very long because the card wore out. How many Barry Bonds or Babe Ruth cards were destroyed? So what I'm trying to say, okay, is that at the time, because the baseball cards were sold in packages and it was like $0.015 or 2 cents or whatever for this, we didn't give it much thought.
Yeah. And
now that the time has passed, we think, oh my gosh, how foolish were we? So, for instance, a long time ago, McCormick used to make spices and they used to put it in metal cans. They don't put it in metal cans anymore. They put it in plastic cans. So things are changing. They're looking to make things as inexpensively as possible. But you're going to look back on and you're going to look back days from now or weeks from now or years from now and say, you know what? I remember Ted talking to us about holding our own money. And I remember Ted saying that money is defined in the Constitution as gold and silver. And if you read further, it's 371.25 grains of silver makes up $1. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually very succinctly defined in the Constitution what a dollar is. So if that's a dollar, what are you holding?
Yeah. I hold silver.
Me too.
Yeah.
I hold just enough dollars to pay the bills, and I hold just enough dollars to.
Sure.
I want my account to zero out at the end of the month. If I have any more than $31 left in there, guess where I'm going?
Right. And everybody can listen to what you say, listen to what I say, listen to other people that are in this sector, and then make up their mind for themselves. I mean, to me, yes, I do not have 100% of my dollars converted to silver because I need to live and I want a little bit of diversification as well. And everybody's different in that regard. I will go back to the fact, though, that the silver that I've bought over the last 20 years now, little by little, I don't look at that as I look at that as generational. And I love that concept. I think Andy Schechtman he brought that up last time I talked to him. Like, to me, it's a generational investment. Sure, I would use some of it if we got into, a
what
pickle.
Better way to show your love, something tangible. These coins are beautiful. I don't know. Is it just me? If money was gold and money was silver, which is finite, people would be a lot more reverent about it. So, for instance, let's suppose you go into a casino and you lay down $10,000 to go gambling for the night. You know, the first thing they do, they separate you from your money, don't they? Have you ever been to a casino?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And you lay the money out across like a little bar or something. They take this thing, they shove your dollars down in there, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's gone. Now what they've done is they've given you their money instead. Your money's gone. Now, what happened here? They took our silver from our money back in 1965. They took it from us, and we were none the wiser. And then these smart son of a guns, what they did was they created a program where you collected quarters from all around the country. What did that do? Gresham's Law. Gresham's Law said that bad money forces good money out of circulation. So they got you to collect the good money and the bad money, and that put the bad money back in circulation. They thought was bad money. That was picked up by Coinstar. You dump that stuff in the machine, that gives you a little chit or whatever. But it was one of the hottest traded stocks on the stock market for a while. You know why?
Yeah.
Because those machines are separating out the pre-65 dimes, quarters, and $half. And because there's 14 dimes to 1 ounce of pure silver, it was pretty easy to figure out that they were making 14 times their money just by simply taking what wasn't theirs, or the people didn't know. They were stupid and they didn't understand what it is that they had. So a lot of you have stuff that you don't understand what you have either, because no one has probably sat down with you, because a financial plan will be somewhere between $1,500 and $6,000 from a fee-only certified financial planner. Yeah. Now, if you work
Ted, I'm going to give you a break 1 second. I need to do a quick commercial break to thank my sponsors, because you and I wouldn't be on here if it wasn't for them. So you take a breath.
Get some water. I'll be right back. Great.
Okay. I'm going to say, I'm getting used to this finger thing here. Thanks to our sponsor, Pimbex, Pimbex, Pimbex.com, online bullion dealer. I trust them. I found they have the best prices, the best selection, and the best service. I've been working with them from my perspective for almost a year. If you're in the market to buy gold, silver, platinum online, check out Pimbex for yourself. Throw them into the mix. You need to discover for yourself. I think they check all the boxes. Thank you, Pimbex, for sponsoring Ron's Basement. Fortuna Silver announced their earnings just yesterday. They're generating great cash flow. I think it's a stock that I own. I'm not giving financial advice, but the company is managed in a very conservative way, methodically, and I'm looking forward, me personally, to the next 5 years with Fortuna Silver. And of course, our friends at First Mining Gold, Dan Wilton, Dan Wilton, the CEO, company founded by Keith Neumeyer, 2 5 million ounce projects in Canada. They've got over 12 million ounces of gold in the ground in Canada. You can learn more about them at firstmininggold.com. Ted, we're back to you.
All right, great. So I thought it might be helpful to go through a couple of the responses that we're getting here from people that you're writing in with, because there's 2 ways to learn: your experiences and the experiences of others. The experience of others is a little less painful to you.
And if anybody wants to reach out to Ted, I'll have his email address in the description of this video.
So I got this one from Diane. Okay. And she says, I know the importance of silver eagles. I understand that you are saying there is a new money system waiting, which it is. I know the Constitution regarding gold and silver. My question is this: my bullion stack, like many others, is more than silver eagles. After watching you on Ron's basement, you really only talked about silver eagles. Now I'm concerned I may have to convert some of my entire stack to silver eagles. Please reassure me that this is not the case. Thank you for getting the word out. Best regards, sincerely, Diane. No, folks, don't do that. You made the decision, and there was good, better, and best money. Okay. If you didn't buy eagles and you didn't buy junk, you did buy silver. Okay. It's not money, but silver is still a great investment. Now, you won't be able to use it as money. Okay. Because it won't be what's regarded as what's called the coin of the realm. We've been talking about that with the maple leaf being money up in Canada and other countries having their own sovereign currencies. So we are returning back to a sound money system. And I believe in the United States is going to be headed up by Dr. Judy Shelton. So you might want to write that name down, Shelton, Dr. Judy Shelton. Very sharp lady, very smart. She was actually put on the board of board of governors for the Federal Reserve Bank by President Trump. And so she has had her fingers into what's going on. And I wish I could have gotten up into that upper level, but I'm a couple levels down. I wasn't able to get into those types of programs, but I certainly would have liked to. I think Austrian monetary economics is where we're going back to, and that's historical. It always goes this way. So as far as
Ted, I want to touch on that question as well. I think there's a wide variety of opinions when it comes to what's the best kind of silver to stack, right? Like me, I'm like her. I'm diverse in terms of what I own. I own some eagles. You know, the thing with I'll be honest with you, the reason why I kind of steered away from eagles, let's say over the last 3 to 4 years, were the premiums.
Well, does the premiums indicate that then there's additional value?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Yeah, I know the gold-backed guys like to throw out that argument as well, and it makes sense.
Do you ever get something for nothing? And if you do, for how long? And if you do,
right.
What was the original agenda? Okay.
Right.
The bottom line is, I don't think it's the amount of silver that you need to own a lot of it. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're in the United States, you need to own the right type. And in the right type in the United States, it's silver eagles and junk silver. That's the money of our country. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're in other countries, go and read what your Constitution says about what they define money to be. Although the United States is a little bit different, because we still have the ability to protect ourselves with arms. Other countries around the world, they don't have that. Australia gave up their right. They said, oh, hey, why don't you turn in your guns? They're dangerous. Oh, okay, let's turn them in. Now they're under the people that are holding the guns against them. The United States has over 300 million guns in it. We'll never be defeated. There's actually more citizens with guns in the United States than there are in any military around the world. We can't be taken over. The only way we can be taken over is from within. Teaching our kids to dye their hair yellow and purple and pink and all this stuff. My God, come on! What kind of chemicals do you think? What do you think? Kind of chemicals do you think is in that dye that gets into your hair to turn it yellow? And do you think that might get into your body too?
Yeah.
There was a guy that I knew had a tattoo done, and he went on this cruise and had the butler and all that kind of stuff. He came back, lost his job, and he wound up getting a job with I think it was FedEx. But he still wasn't making enough money, so he wound up selling his platelets at Johns Hopkins, meaning that he would lay down on a gurney and they would take his blood out and they would take his platelets out. Well, it wasn't about a month or two later, he came down with cancer. And so they treated him with radiation. And the part that I wanted to explain to you is this. When he treated him with the radiation, I think it was a zone thing, okay? The red ink on his tattoo had to be covered up specifically because it reacted with the radiation.
Wow.
You don't know what's in this stuff that they're putting in your bodies. You know, they wanted to try to put this jab stuff in you, right? And it turns out that was bad news as well. So again, we're talking about some stuff. I'd really like to try to keep it confined down into money. Okay. And if you already have silver, you already have gold. Don't go exchanging it for another type of gold or silver. Now, you made the decision. If you're going to plot a point from Baltimore to California, how many times do you want to stop in between and get different directions? You make the decision, you plot the best course, and you stick with it. It's called persistence. I don't care if you stay with anything long enough and you put enough effort into it and you're persistent enough to it, it'll be successful. So
Yeah.
don't go swapping one. Ted says this. Go out. No, don't do that. It makes money for the coin shop.
Yeah.
You made your decision. Learn from it. From here on out, make the right decision. The
Yeah.
right decision is not to hold stocks at the top of a market that's involved in a fiat monetary system that's crashing, that's been around a lot longer than it should have. What's the life cycle of a fiat currency?
Right.
Folks, you need to do the research like I have. I mean, there's one guy that commented and says, "Well, I already heard what Ted had to say. I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to hear the same thing again." Well, my goodness, I suggest you go out and do some digging. But besides that, if you're able to comprehend everything that I said right off the bat, drinking like a fire hose in this, man, I'd like to meet you. You must be some kind of brilliant dude. But I think most of us need to hear it a couple of times. So I think what we need to do is hear it a couple of times from a couple of different angles, and you'll get it. And that's the idea of reading these messages back that you guys send in here. What are your concerns? What are your thoughts? Where's your head? What kind of major concerns do you have? So as far as type 1 and type 2 eagles, I'd really like to get off of that one because they're going to run out of type 1s. They're just about gone right now anyway. Then all you're left with is type 2s. But for as long as you can get type 1s, I'd suggest you do that. And right now you can get them without really a difference in price. So at any rate, what I'd suggest you do is look at this, embrace it in the proper way. What you're holding in the bank, what you're holding in brokerage firms, anything digital is not real. What is real is gold and silver. At this point in time, the only two things I think you should trust: God and the periodic table. There'll come a time you can trust others. And at that point in time, you might want to say, "Oh, wow, this coin is really pretty," and go and buy that. That's after you've already hit the jackpot. Okay, we got to get your money out of the casino and stand it on the street, and then you pick what casino you want to go into from there. But right now, all your chips, if you're holding your assets digitally, your chips are in that casino, and they'll let you know when you have the money back, so you can exit the casino. Is this making sense? This is a good example.
I think that's a great example, Ted. And on behalf of everyone who's joined us today, I want to say thank you. It's been another great live stream. Can we count on seeing you again next Friday?
I'm having fun. Are you?
I'm having fun, and I know the crowd loves you. I want to reiterate to everyone that what we're offering here are our opinions. Do your own due diligence on any of these ideas that we have. I have ideas. Ted has great ideas. But you need to, make decisions for yourself, do your own research, and decide what's right for you. But I think Ted and I are in alignment on most everything. And again, for me, I'll end with this, right? When I think of where I want to store my value, my wealth, I'm real comfortable with having a chunk of it in precious metals. And for me, that's silver specifically. Do you have any parting words, Ted?
God loves you.
Thank you.
God loves you. Thanks for tuning in. Make the daggone decisions. Either you're going to stay where you are, or you're going to make a change, but do it before it's too late.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thank you, Ted. We'll see you soon.